Hello, Howell Carnegie District Library artists. Today we are going to paint a non-objective work of art. When we say non-objective, we are actually talking under the umbrella of abstract. So when a work of art looks realistic, that means it looks like a photograph. The artist is trying to make it look perfect, trying to make it look like real life. We call that realistic. If not, we call it abstract. So under this umbrella of abstract, we have objective and non-objective. If something is objective, that means we want it to look like something. We want it to look like abstract flowers or abstract landscape, right? If something is non-objective, it does not have that intention of looking like something in particular. It's just lines, shapes, and colors. And that's what we're going to do today, is we are just going to play with lines, shapes, and colors to create a non-objective abstract work of art. So let's get started with our supplies. Make sure you have everything. You should have your paint all ready to go. Your brushes, if they are brand new, go ahead and give them a rinse. If they've already been used like mine have, then you are good to go. You'll know that there will be something kind of like gooey and sticky if they're brand new. So go ahead and give them a rinse and just get that kind of like glue texture off the ends of your brush. That's just to make sure the brush doesn't lose its shape before you get it home. So get your brushes ready to go, stirring them up in your water cup. Also, you're going to need something to dab your brushes on. If you have a paper towel or a towel, either way is perfect. And we are also going to be working with a paper plate that we're going to use as our palette, which we're actually going to create a color wheel on as well. So go ahead and take a second, if you don't have your supplies, to grab the supplies. If you do, and you are ready to get started just like I am, then we will go ahead and begin with our color wheel. So, should have told you to grab a pen. Grab a pen if you don't have one. We are going to create a color wheel so we have a little bit of a better understanding about how color works when we're color mixing with paint. So go ahead and start with a circle. And give yourself 3 little circles. These are going to be our primary colors, all right? Our primary colors are the ones that we start with, which are red, yellow, and blue. All right, we're going to use these colors to mix purple or violet, green, and orange. So we can go ahead and label all these spots right now. And we have all the primary colors. We should have also a couple blues. When you are mixing up your greens with your yellows and even your purples with your reds, you're going to find that a different blue is going to create a really, really different color. So that's why we have a couple of those. So you can play around with that as we do our color wheel. So I'm just going to go ahead and start by taking my biggest brush. Since I'm taking scoops and putting scoops of my paint into my primary color spots, I'm just going to have my biggest brush to get those nice big scoops. So grab your paint, and we're going to start with those primary colors. They're the ones that we've got. We obviously don't have green yet. We don't have orange yet. We don't have purple yet. So go ahead and get a big old glob of each of these colors on there. And clean your brush in between. I like to remove the excess paint just like that by scraping it off because I don't want to waste any of my paint. And to clean your brush, you are just going to go ahead and stir it up in your cup, just like you're stirring up chocolate milk. Make sure your brush is nice and clean. Dry it down on your paper towel a little bit. And choose whichever blue you want to work with first is fine. We're going to play with both blues and see how they kind of make a different color But just to get started, you can just grab one blue for right now. That's fine. And your red. The yellow and red that we have are both cadmium deep yellow and cadmium deep red. I love those cadmium deeps because they allow us to have a really, really rich and bold color. So you will notice as you are taking these out that these are really, really rich red and yellow. So we can always tone them down if we want them to not be so rich with, brown or white. But it's nice to start out with such a strong, strong color. All right. So one thing I want you to notice as we are mixing our colors is how much of the lighter color you are going to need in comparison to your darker color. And you're going to need quite a bit less of the lighter color. So I'm going to take a scoop. Well, yellow is my lightest color here. You can see blue is pretty dark, red is pretty dark, yellow is my lightest color. So since I know I need more of that lightest color, I'm going to take a scoop of my yellow, and that's going to start me out with my green. And I'm going to go ahead and take a scoop of my yellow, and that's going to get me started with my orange too. Okay. Now you're going to see we do not need very much red or very much blue to turn this yellow into orange and green. All right, clean your brush every time you change colors, of course. And I'm going to go ahead and just take like a poke of my red and see how far that gets me with this. And if I want it to be a more bold orange, I can add some more red. But I can see just that little poke of red turn that yellow orange really, really quick. So I want to make sure when I'm mixing with yellow that I have a lot of yellow. If I start mixing and I'm like, oh, this is too dark, let me add more yellow, let me add more yellow, let me add more yellow, I'm going to run out of yellow. So if you get too dark when you're trying to mix with yellow, just go ahead and start fresh. And that'll be easier than trying to fix a color that's too dark when you're mixing with yellow. Just start fresh. So same thing here. Blue is a bit darker than red. So I'm going to take a smaller dab this time. Okay. And I'm going to mix this up and see how that looks. So even just that little bit, you can see turn my yellow to green. Like I said before, a different blue is going to create a different green. So I'm going to go ahead and clean my brush off a bit here. And I'm going to see what my other blue does. I'm going to see how different my other blue works with my yellow and see if I can create a different green with that. So I'm going to grab a scoop of yellow. And I'm just going to set it next to my green. Maybe I'll just put it right here. That's fine. Save the middle for some neutral colors, for some browns and some beiges. So put your, if you put your yellow up here already, that's okay. Just put an extra blob of yellow down here to make your other blue, or your other green rather. So grab your other blue and add a smidge of that, just a poke, and see if that creates a really different green for you. And you may like one of your greens better than the other. You can also play around with adding more of the blue to make it a bit darker, and just see what you like. Again, if it gets too dark and you want it to be lighter, just make a new puddle with yellow. Don't try to lighten up a color that you've mixed with yellow. Just start fresh. I'll darken this one up too, so I can really see the difference there. All right. And lastly, we're going to make some purple. So we want to start with the lighter color. Red is going to be a bit lighter than blue. So we're going to need more red than blue. So I'm going to go ahead and with a clean brush, I'm going to start with red. And with a clean brush, I'm going to grab just a little bit of blue. I might need to add a bit more this time, so I'm not going to be too afraid of my blue, but definitely less blue than red is going to turn this purple or violet. And if it looks kind of more maroon to you and you're like, that's not what I'm thinking of when I think of purple, add some white to it and you will find that'll lighten it right up and be kind of more like the classic purple that you're thinking of. So I'm going to take a bit of white and see if I can't. I might need to add a little bit more blue to mine. But you can see that white is going to bring it to that kind of more classic purple that we're used to. So now we have the full rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So we do want to play around with some neutral colors too. But let's get some paint on our canvas first, and then let's play around with neutral colors, because we don't want to have the white of our canvas showing through. So we want to cover our canvas with a color to start with, and then we're going to let that dry, create some neutral colors, and then we'll add more right on top of it. So decide what colors, and probably you've already got something in mind, but decide what colors you're thinking and choose one. We're going to paint right on top of it, so don't worry. But choose one color that you're going to fill your whole canvas with. And for me, I'm deciding between either yellow or blue. So decide for yourself. I think I'm going to go with yellow. And I think I want to do a kind of more subtle yellow. So I'm going to take some white and yellow, and I'm going to go for that. And I'm going to see how I like that. And again, we're going to paint over this whole thing. So do not worry about if your color isn't perfect to start with. We really just want to cover up the white of the canvas. If we want white on our canvas, we are going to put white on the canvas with white paint. I'm liking this color. So I just mixed white with yellow. Whatever color you're doing is up to you. It does not need to be the same as what I'm doing. I'm just getting myself started. I got a nice big glob of paint here, which is just fine because I am going to fill my entire canvas with this paint. So you can see that big old glob got me pretty far. Take another bit. Now that I have paint on most of my canvas, now I can just use some water to make sure that I fill the entire thing, because obviously I have spots that I've missed. So go ahead and you can grab your water. You don't want your brush to be too wet, so I just like to tap it on the side. And you can spread that color around. My cup, you can see my water's a little bit dirty. Maybe you can't see that. Yeah, you can see that. That's okay. I don't need fresh water. So what this water's doing is just allowing the paint to go a little further. I don't want my canvas to have really, really thick globs of paint on it right now, because that'll take quite a bit to dry. And right now we're just doing a base color. So we want this to dry kind of quickly so that we can get started. We want this to dry while we're working on our neutral colors. So we don't want big globs of paint right now. We really just want to cover our whole canvas. And I'm using my biggest brush still. I should have said that. I hope you're using your biggest brush. If not, if you're trying to fill your canvas with one of the smaller brushes, switch to that biggest brush again. I bet you're using your biggest brush. In general, if you have a big space, use a bigger brush. If you have a small space, use a smaller brush. And you can see why I chose yellow. I've got a yellow wall behind me and a yellow apron. I just love yellow. You do what color you want to do, obviously. Blue is another favorite of mine. That's why I was deciding between the two. I'll probably have blue in mine. Maybe I'll do like yellows and blues and neutrals and maybe a little bit of green, since I know blue and yellow mix together to make green. I always put red into my paintings, and my family asks me to make some paintings without red in them, so we'll see if this painting ends up with some red in it. All right, once you have your whole canvas covered, go ahead and clean up your brush, and let's start to play around with these neutral colors. I want to show you guys how to make brown. We gave you brown because it is not so easy to make brown, but I want to show you how it's made so that you understand. So as you are playing around with these neutral colors, you'll know what each of the primary colors is going to kind of do to it. So to make brown, you need a lot of yellow, right? Just like we were saying before, you need the most of the lightest color, and yellow is the lightest. So I need the most of my yellow. I need less of my red, and I need a tiny bit, and I know I didn't clean my brush, of my blue. And I know I didn't clean my brush, I should have. If you ever do that, if you ever make a little mess and you want to clean it up, don't do what I just did. But if you ever make a mess of your paint, you can always just scoop that mess away, and then it's still good. Put my mess over there. All right, so I've got a lot of yellow, less red, and a tiny bit of blue, and I'm going to stir it up, and I just might get brown. If it looks kind of green, I want to use the opposite color. So the opposite of green is red. If it looks kind of orange, I need more blue, right? Because I've got a lot of yellow and red if it looks orange. If it looks green, I've got a lot of blue and yellow. Mine's looking pretty brown. Mine looks a little bit red in my computer screen, at least. So I could take a little bit more green. So maybe I'll try to add a little bit of blue. Now it looks kind of purple. I probably need a bit more yellow. So I will clean my brush. I do not want to get my yellow dirty because you guys know how precious yellow is. We need so much of it to do what we need to do with it. So never grab your yellow with a dirty brush. Much lazy as you feel, never do that. All right, so that's brown. We've also given you a brown, like I was just saying. We can add, you know, some white to it to make it kind of a lighter brown. It's almost like pinkish. Maybe a bit more yellow. The brown we gave you is a burnt sienna, which is like a milk chocolatey kind of brown, which is really fun. This brown that we're making is kind of more, almost like a burnt umber, kind of more like tree brown. Anyway, these neutral colors are just whites and browns, and they don't really belong on the color wheel. So let's just make a couple of these. So I'm making kind of a light brown. I'm making kind of a mess. I'm going to take some white. We can make gray with white and black. Black is dark like blue. A little bit of black goes a long way. If you mix black with yellow, you're going to get kind of like a green color, which is kind of cool. So I might have some fun with that in a little bit. And you'll notice, since we are mixing colors right now, we're mixing wet paint with wet paint. When we get onto our canvas and we start putting paint on the canvas, if we put paint in a spot that already has wet paint on it, it's going to mix with it, okay? When we get started right now, our canvas is going to be dry. That's why we're mixing up our neutrals now. So we can put any color right on top and it's not going to mix, it's going to be fine. But when we start putting wet paint onto the canvas and we're putting more wet paint, if we let those colors touch, they're going to mix a bit. So that can be good or bad. So we want to make sure we're aware of what we're doing there. So I'm just making kind of like a light peachy color. I'll also make a gray. And again, gray is made with, oh, I don't want to waste this paint. Put it down here. Gray is made with white and black. So start with a lot of white, just like we start with a lot of yellow, and add a tiny bit of black. And just like a corner, it's like a little corner of your brush, and the black is going to be plenty, more than plenty actually, to make gray. And you can see I'm kind of running out of room here. So my neutrals are mostly in the middle, but I might need to start getting into my edges. And that's okay. Your palette is going to get to go in the garbage after this. So, all right, we are looking good. Check your canvas. Mine's still a little bit wet, so I'm going to give it a little bit more time. I'm going to clean my brush and let my canvas dry for a little bit. So you might want to take a moment, if you have not started thinking about what kind of colors you want to do, you might want to look up some different abstract artworks and decide if there is a color scheme that you are really into. Think about, you know, how kind of neutral do you want it to be? Do you want it to be kind of like poppin'? Kind of bright and poppin'? Oh, I didn't show you how to make pink. Do you want it to be kind of sloppy looking with lots of different colors? How do you want it to feel? Do you want it to be kind of dark? or maybe kind of geometric. Or maybe bright. Maybe you do like lots of bright colors. Take a minute and kind of get yourself a little bit more sure of what your plan is while we wait for this canvas to dry a little bit more. Now that we've given our canvas a second to dry, we can check and make sure with our hands that it is dry. You can see I checked a little bit early. So once it is ready, then we can start adding paint to it, and we don't have to worry about that paint mixing. If you don't mind if your paint starts to mix a little bit, then you can get started as it's still wet, but I think it's nice to start when it is fully dry. If you're waiting and you're like, this is taking forever, grab a fan or put it under your ceiling fan to have that process move a little bit quicker. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I think that I wanted to start with some neutral colors on mine. And I think that I want to stick with my largest brush for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use a kind of like a light peachy yellow color for mine. So you choose which color you are ready to start with. Try it out on your canvas and see how you like it. There's really no right or wrong way to create a non-objective work of art. It's really just filling our canvas bit by bit until we're happy with it. Stirring up my brush in my cup before I change colors. I think I'm going to go for plain white for a little bit. And depending on how much paint I have on my brush, I can create a dry brush technique where I can kind of see through my brush stroke. Here, I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a dry brush. My brush is pretty dry. It creates this kind of like texture effect where I can see through my brush stroke a little bit, which you can play around with and have some fun with. I can also play around with a kind of a more watercolor kind of way of painting if I use more water. So since my white is still wet, I can actually just take some water and move that white around. To create this kind of more wet watercolor type look. Or if I want a really, really bold color, I'm just going to use, you know, a nice amount of paint. And that's going to give me that rich, bold color. And if it's too dry for me, I can always add a little bit of water to my paintbrush. So I'm just playing around with lines and shapes right now. And my colors. Said I wanted to put some green on this, so maybe I'll start to add a bit of green. And I'm kind of going more muted, kind of lighter. So I'm going to kind of stick with my lighter colors. So I added some white to my green. Ooh, and now that I got that green on there, I kind of want to add some purple. You can have a plan in mind, and then sometimes it goes out the window, which can be good or bad. How bold do I want to go? Is that too bold? No, let's do it. And I can always cover up anything that I'm doing. Once it dries, I can cover it right up. And it could be like it never happened if I'm upset later. If I'm like, oh, I gotta do that. Cover it right up. So I'm playing with kind of a dry brush right now. I'm playing around with that texture. And since I am using a dry brush, I do know that this part is going to dry pretty quickly. So I know I'm going to be able to put more paint on top of it. So I'm not really worried that it's such a, dramatic color. I'm not so worried about it. I think I like this color scheme, this kind of like red, green, yellow. But you guys know I told you blue is also a favorite of mine, so we'll see how long this lasts. Maybe a little bit of light orange would be nice. So I'm taking white and I'm mixing it with my orange. It's really whatever you feel. Whatever seems like a good idea to you is what you should do. And now you can see mine started to mix there. And I don't think I necessarily want it to mix, so I think I'm going to stop putting brush strokes right there. Kind of move to a different spot. One of the really great things, or really fun things about abstract art, not objective specifically, is that you can move your canvas, you can turn it, and then play with the composition in a totally different way. So I'm going to turn my canvas now on its side and look at it and think, all right, where do I need to add something now? So look at it from a new perspective. I think I want to add brown, and I think I want to use the one that's fresh out of the tube, kind of. Maybe I'll tone it down a little bit with some white. So I'm grabbing some of that plain brown. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, and I'm going to play around with that. I've been using the same brush this whole time, which is not the right thing to do. You do want to change up your brush. So I'm going to mix this color, and then I'm going to change my brush. Get a little red in it. How that looks. Yeah, that's kind of nice. Oops, I said I was supposed to change my brush and I didn't. Change your brush. If you're still using the same brush, change your brush. We don't want to have all of the same brush strokes on this canvas. That would be pretty boring. We got all these beautiful brushes. We got flat brushes, we got round brushes, we got big ones, we got small ones. So put away that brush that you were using, that big brush, put it away and grab a different one. I'm going to grab a small round brush. So I went from a big flat and now I'm going to a small round. And there's really no wrong way to do this. And any part of it that we decide we don't like, we can always put paint on top of it. So if I'm doing something right now, I'm like, oh, this is not good. I can always cover it up. So don't be afraid to do something that you are, as soon as you do it, you're like, oh, that's okay. Let it dry. Not a big deal. I think I don't like quite how bold these things are. I think I want to spread that out a little bit. So again, since it's still wet, I can move it around. And I just switched brushes again. Always a good idea to switch your brush. And maybe I'll also switch my orientation again here in a second. So look at your canvas and think, all right, which spot needs something? For me, I'm not loving what I was just doing. I think I kind of like the bigger, more plain shapes. So I think I need to make this shape bigger and more plain. And now I'm losing that fun green I had. So I'm going to bring that green back. I'm going to cover this up. Not too happy with that. Sorry. Let me turn it again. Turn it this way. And I'm going to let this area dry a bit, and I'm going to work over here so that I can go on top of this, because I know I'm not happy with it as it is, but I know it is quite wet because I layered quite a bit. So I'm going to come back to it. So I'm looking at my painting in my computer screen. That helps me look like it's farther away. I could get up and physically move away. That's what you would probably want to do too. You can also squint at your artwork to get an idea of how it looks from a bit farther away. So for me, I feel like I want to put that light green back in, and I feel like I kind of want to do it around here. I think that's what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to make some more of that light green. And get up and walk away from your painting right now. If you haven't walked away from it yet, stand up and scoot back and decide, okay, what color do I need? Where do I need it? What shape do I need? Or do I need some lines? And where do I want to put it? I think I want a lot of this. Another fun thing that we can do, and we'll probably do this later, probably not the best time to do it now, but drips can be fun. So we'll need our paint to be a bit wet in order to be able to do that. We could do that in a little bit. What do I need? I need this color. Oh, that came out bright red. I wasn't looking at what I was doing. Let's mute that down a little bit. A composition rule that I say I'm breaking is the rule of odds, which says we want odd numbers rather than even numbers. So I have 2 circles that are green. So I know I want to put one more circle that's green somewhere, because odd numbers create for a better composition than even numbers. So I think I should put a green circle somewhere else. Right here. And I've kind of lost my yellow, so maybe I want to bring some of that yellow back. And I want to be aware of what parts are dry and what parts are wet. And I can look at my canvas probably and be able to tell which parts are light and what are wet and which parts are dry. But I also should check with my hand before I assume that something is dry, unless I don't mind if it mixes. Something else that's fun is we can kind of remove, when we put more paint on our canvas and we have a color below it, we can remove some of the paint with the back of our brush to get some texture and to let some of the color from underneath show through a little bit. Scraping some of that paint away. And again, don't be afraid to do something that's not going to turn out pretty, because you can cover it up. So I'm at the point with mine where I need to make some bold lines. So that's what I'm doing. And I think I'm ready to turn mine too. We've been looking at it this way for a little while. So I'm going to turn mine. And I think I need some more white. So you, when you're ready, turn yours and decide which color you need some more of. I'm going to switch my brush again. I'm going to go for my big brush. And again, if your paint is wet, it's going to mix a little bit on you, just like mine did. So if you want to be a clean white and it's starting to mix, just leave it. Let that area dry a little bit before you get back to it. And again, if you haven't stepped back away from your painting in a little while, take a step back right now. I think I want more of my kind of light green color. Turned out a bit too blue. So I need some more yellow. Maybe I need some of my other blue. Don't forget we've got 2 different blues that we're playing with. So if you're trying to find the same color and you're like, what's going on? Maybe it needs a little bit of the other blue. And my palette is getting so messy. Yeah, it's closer. And we're really just playing with our paint until we're happy with what we have. And I'm really happy with these lines over here. I think I want to do more of this. I think I want to do more lines going up and down with white. And maybe I should kind of get rid of that red and bring blue in instead. And I might as well give it a try and see if I like it better. And I do. Makes me want to brighten up my green too. Makes me want a brighter canvas. I think I'm going to make a different green. And again, as long as your canvas is dry, you can make any changes as you're going along. And you can cover up anything that you're unhappy with. So I'm taking my other blue and I'm mixing up a brighter green. And let me see if I like this better. This part looks messy. So what I'm doing now is I'm just taking brush strokes and I'm covering up parts that look like they're sloppy. This part looks sloppy to me. So I think I'm going to put a brush stroke over it and bring it off the page. Let's kind of clean that up a little bit. And maybe a bit more white to kind of unify it, because I've got quite a few different things going on here and it feels a little bit like it needs something to pull it all together. So for yours, look at yours and think, what does mine need? Does it need more different, or does it need more of something the same? And add whatever you think. And again, if it turns out like, ugh, let it dry and paint right on top of it. This is the fun of it, right? I want to put it there and I know it's wet, so I'm not going to do that right now. Where else do I want it? It's fun to let some of the colors underneath show through to show off how much love you've put into this, to show off those layers. So I'm purposefully leaving some space around my brush strokes when I'm changing up these areas. I'm purposefully leaving some of it showing what was underneath. I'm happy with this area. I'm not happy with this area. This needs some more work. And I'm pretty happy with this area, but not here. Like, this is what I need to work on. So maybe I'm going to move my canvas again. Turn your canvas as much as you like. If you haven't turned your canvas in a little bit and you're kind of like me, like, I know which spots I want to touch, but maybe I don't necessarily know how I want to touch them, move your canvas. Still quite wet. When you work with acrylic paint dries pretty quickly. When you work with oil paint takes days and days and days to dry. So I'm going to show you guys a trick that really works well with oil paint, or that works well with acrylic when you are impatient. And that is to wipe some of the paint off. If you kind of like the effect that this has, you can use this to your benefit too. And you can see it reveals what's below, which can be kind of fun. I think for me, I just wanted to remove that paint and then put more paint on top. But try out removing some of your paint like this and see if you like that technique. I think I'll turn mine again. And whatever you think for yours. I should show you guys how to do a drip, huh? Ooh, maybe you've already done one. Maybe when I mentioned it before, you did one. So for a good drip on your canvas, you need your paint to be a bit wet. So I think I want to do a green kind of drip. So I need a wet brush. Nice and wet. And I need my paint color. And I need to make a bit more of this. So I'm going to get my prepper color. I remember which blue I wanted for this green. So I'm going to mix up some more of this green, and then I'm going to get it nice and watery so that I can drip it onto my canvas. I might be nearly done. So when I look at it right now, there's not too much that I'm unhappy with. And that's kind of what we're going for, is to have the whole thing be in a place where we're not unhappy with it. Happy is good, but if we can at least be, not unhappy with any part of it, and then you can sleep on it and look at it again tomorrow and see if you're still feeling good about it, then that would be good. All right, so I've got my color, and now I'm taking my water, and I am dripping my water onto my canvas, or onto my palette rather. So I'm making my paint really, really wet. And I think I need a little bit more water. So I'm gonna dip into my water and stir it up into my paint. Yeah. Get it nice and wet so that you can see. Need a little bit more water. Yeah, it wants to drip. Onto my computer. I tried to catch it. So get it wet enough that it wants to drip. And then all good is new. And then you'll find a place where you want to try this out on your canvas. If you don't want to try it out, you don't have to. I think I need mine to be a little bit more wet. Yeah, drippy. So where do I want to do this? So what we want to happen is we just want it to drip down. So I'm gonna actually just hold mine above my canvas. Maybe I'll kind of set it here. Hopefully it'll drip down. And if it doesn't want to drip too much, I can add more water. You can see it's moving at a snail's pace. That's okay. Maybe a bit more water. So you guys can see what I'm talking about. And that can be fun. If you like the kind of how the drip is looking, you can play around with that. If you don't love it, you don't have to do it. If you want to do some Jackson Pollock splashing on there, you can do that. You can take your wet paintbrush like we've got, take your thumb and pull it back, and that'll kind of spray your canvas a little bit. I don't think I want to do that. And I don't think I necessarily want these drips, so I think I am going to remove them, but I did want to show you guys how to do it. When anything is wet, you can always remove it. So I'm going to take my drips out. Oops. I'm going to take my drips off. And I'm just wiping it right off. And now I just need to decide what is the finishing touch. Right here does bother me. Maybe blue, maybe green. Yellow. I imagine at this point you're just going for it with your own. Maybe you don't need to hear me talking about mine. hopefully you got to a point where you're just like into it and squinting at it and moving back from it, turning it around, looking at it and deciding what does yours need. I'm only going to take one more moment with mine. I'm going to do one final touch to it, and then I'm going to call it all done. So decide for you, what else do you need to do in order to get yourself to that point where you feel like you're done? And for me, it might just be that one spot. I'm going to try it out and decide if I'm all done. It seems too light. I'm going to make it a little orange. I'm just adding a bit more texture now with a dry brush technique as my finishing touch. And I'm using blue because I feel like blue is the one color that I wish I had a little bit more of. And now I think I want some bold white, and I think that might do it. All right, I'm gonna move mine once more to find what it needs. I know it's almost there. I think I'm going to stop. When you get yourself to a point where you feel like you're ready to stop, at least stop for today and pick it up where it is tomorrow. It's hard to know when to stop your painting. Stop it when you feel like if you go any farther, then it's not going to help. And like I said before, when there's no part of it that you're like, this part I need to fix. I think I'm at that point where I can't see a spot that I necessarily am frustrated with. So I'm going to leave mine as it is, and I'm going to call it done. If I want to revisit it another day, I can. Obviously, all that's going to happen right now is that it's going to start to dry. And then if I want to add or make changes to it, I'm going to have time once it's dry to do so. So for me, this is how I am finishing my painting. I hope you are happy with yours, or at least I hope you feel like I do, where there's no part of it that you really want to change. Lots of times we will be happier with our paintings on a new day. So if you are not happy with your painting today, but you're like, I don't know why I'm not happy with it, sleep. Go to sleep and look at it tomorrow and you'll be happier with it. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will make more non-objective art in the future. I hope you had fun with it. And I hope you learned a little something. So thanks for watching.